We've scoured the forest, dug up places no one would have thought to look, but there's nothing. No shoes, no blood, no trail.
Search efforts have now entered their fourth day. K-9 units, helicopters, drones, and hundreds of personnel have been working nonstop.
Investigators remain committed to exploring all possibilities surrounding the children's disappearance. We want to thank all those who provided tips and information. Please know that we're fully engaged in finding out what happened to Lilly and Jack.
We've joined the search teams from time to time, just trying to help, but
You see how it is. Still nothing.
those two kids, who knows where they are now?
The disappearance left behind no physical trace, no evidence, no sound. A case that seems to have vanished into thin air.
Feels like I'm reliving a nightmare of May 2nd. But the main feelings from sadness have just turned to anger because there's no evidence as of after 1 month. And it's really taken a toll.
Lilly and Jack Sullivan have been missing for months. No camera footage, no witnesses, no physical evidence. Every conventional search effort, from ground sweeps and aerial drones to tracking dogs and neighborhood canvassing, was carried out swiftly and with determination. No one could accuse the authorities of standing still, but some cases do not bend to the logic of "we've done enough." Some cases resist traditional tools the more you apply them. And if this was a plan, carefully arranged, quietly executed, then no amount of repeated methods will lead us closer to the truth. We now live in an age where behavior leaves traces, not always at the crime scene, but in the data. Information from satellites, electronic devices, financial records, even unconscious facial expressions in a social media photo. Any of it could be evidence, if we know how to read it. Investigating in this era requires not just patience, but reverse logic, emotional detachment, and new instruments of analysis. We no longer wait for anonymous tips or lucky witnesses. We proactively pursue traces, starting with what might have been overlooked. And from the next chapter onward, step by step, we'll begin to re-examine this case from a completely different angle, not to replace what's already been done, but to reach for what no one has thought to look for.
The problem isn't always what the footage shows. It's what we've been taught to ignore.
AI doesn't look for drama. It looks for patterns. And that's where the truth usually hides.
The morning Lilly and Jack disappeared, no camera captured them leaving the house. Not the front porch, not the back alley, not the street corner, not the nearby gas station. Dozens of hours of footage were reviewed manually, frame by frame, through exhausted eyes. The conclusion? Nothing. No sign of the children, no strangers, no suspicious vehicles. But silence does not mean absence. It's a signal, one that simply needs the right system to decode. Security footage is often dismissed when nothing unusual appears, but perhaps the problem isn't what the camera didn't catch, but how we were trained to look at it. Human eyes search for obvious motion, a child walking, a car speeding, a shadow passing by. But artificial intelligence doesn't just look, it recognizes patterns. Imagine a gray SUV driving past the Sullivan home around 7 a.m., 4 times in 2 weeks before the disappearance. It broke no laws, it raised no red flags. But why 4 times? And why only at that time of day, always hesitating for just a second at the same intersection? Investigators didn't follow up because nothing seemed suspicious. But AI doesn't rely on suspicion. It relies on numbers. A woman in a wide-brimmed hat appeared briefly outside a convenience store 1.2 kilometers from the home. Just one frame, just once. But 5 days later, AI detected the same face again, near a remote bus stop on the city's southern edge. Same hat, same time of morning. And notably, no reason to be in either place unless she was circling something. Einem helyetasiti a human ervelest. But it forces us to ask the right questions. Was there someone regularly passing through the area? Was there a vehicle that lingered, just not long enough to raise concern? Was there a short movement that no one considered significant, simply because it didn't fit our assumptions of danger? We once reviewed surveillance to find answers. But maybe this time we needed to reframe the questions.
The ground can lie, get covered, erased, or missed. But satellites don't blink.
They see what no one thought to notice because they were looking from the wrong direction.
There's a question few people ask once the cameras have failed. Witnesses are silent, and the scene feels untouched, as if nothing ever happened. Who was watching from above? When Lilly and Jack disappeared, every gaze turned downward. People searched for footprints, torn fabric, drag marks in the soil, or remnants of a struggle, if there had been one. But no one looked up to remember that 500 kilometers overhead, a set of unblinking eyes had recorded every second. And those eyes don't care where you hide, whether anyone notices or if you vanish in silence. They just record. In recent years, commercial satellite technology has advanced beyond military and intelligence use. Companies like Maxar, Planet Labs, Sentinel-2, and Black Sky now provide high-resolution satellite imagery, updated daily, sometimes hourly, clear enough to reveal a car parked near a fence, a new tarp erected overnight, or freshly disturbed earth standing out from old grass. Things ground-level cameras miss, because they're not aimed the right way or because they shut off after a few hours. Satellites don't. They watch from above. They're not blocked by fences, trees, or blind corners. They see everything, as long as you know where to look and what to compare. Take, for example, a patch of empty land on the eastern edge of the woods, briefly checked on day 3 after the disappearance. In the image from March 21st, it looks ordinary. But compare it to the image from March 18th, the day the children were reported missing, and a rectangular smudge about 2 meters long appears. It looks like fresh soil, recently dug, then quickly covered with a layer of grass. No one reported this. No one went back to check, because no one saw it in time. It existed only for a morning, then vanished beneath fallen leaves. Another satellite image from March 19th shows a compact vehicle parked in a vacant lot behind an abandoned shopping complex, just 800 meters from the Sullivan home. No CCTV captured it. It wasn't on any local resident list. It didn't match any car mentioned by witnesses. But it appeared clearly in 3 consecutive satellite frames, then never showed up again. The question isn't just where did it go, but who was driving it? And why park where no camera could see you, but a satellite could? We're not lacking in evidence. We just never considered where to look from. Because when everything on the ground is exhausted, the one thing untouched by shadow is what's been recorded under sunlight from orbit. In cases swallowed by silence, where no one speaks and nothing moves, sometimes the only way forward isn't to wait for a lead to surface, but to create one convincing enough to provoke a reaction. A quiet press release, a subtle post on a local forum, a faked image leaked from inside the investigation. It doesn't need to shout. It just needs to land at the right moment, loud enough inside the mind of someone living in fear of exposure. This tactic isn't new in intelligence circles, but it's rarely applied systematically in civilian missing persons cases. It works on a simple principle. The innocent don't flinch at false news, but the guilty do, in some way or another. For example, a rumor is quietly planted that a child's shoe was found near the West Lake, a location previously overlooked. It's posted anonymously on a closed discussion board, disguised as a leak from a forensic tech. 3 hours later, a mobile device, once tied to a former acquaintance of the mother, suddenly goes dark. For weeks, it had sat idle in one location. After the news, it disappears from all tracking systems. In another case, a whisper spreads that an unnamed witness is preparing to testify. 12 hours later, an abandoned social media account, untouched for over a year, is accessed again. The user deletes a series of posts, none directly related to the case, but all saturated with emotional strain and mental instability during the time of the disappearance. The truth is, the guilty aren't always silent. They just don't speak in words. They delete, they power down, they scrub locations, they call the one person who knows something, then hang up. They reveal themselves, not because they've been caught, but because they think they're about to be. Modern investigation isn't just about tracing physical evidence. It's also about applying pressure to the psychology of the suspect, ethically, deliberately, precisely. No legal traps, no forced confessions, just targeted fear, and the chain reactions it unleashes. Because sometimes we don't need to find a new clue. We just need to make it come out on its own.
Before they disappear, they often change how they write and post. See, like a silent farewell.
Emotions can't hide in data, Liz Horing, even if they don't realize they're revealing themselves.
When cameras fail to capture movement, when satellites show shadows but not faces, when false leads yield no reactions, there is still one place where traces may remain, the digital psyche, where people reflect themselves online without realizing it. We are not suggesting the mother in this case acted suspiciously, but modern investigation allows us to hypothesize plausible scenarios. If someone were preparing to disappear with their children or executing a long-considered plan, they might leave behind subtle psychological signals, leaked not through confessions, but through changes in online behavior. No need for diaries, no need for direct statements. Sometimes it's as simple as posting less, posting at odd hours, writing vague captions, using sad emojis, or gradually shifting from we to me and the kids. For the average person, these may seem meaningless, but to AI, they're patterns of emotional drift, measurable through language, timing, and tone. Suppose a private Instagram account began saving content about disappearing off the grid, raising children outside the system, or life in a cabin with no phone. That wouldn't be evidence of guilt, but it would be a behavioral flag, suggesting the case might not be abduction or violence, but a deliberate withdrawal. In cases where no blood is found, no break-ins are reported, and no witnesses come forward, sometimes the answers don't lie at the scene itself, but in the weeks and months leading up to it, when the emotional groundwork is quietly laid and social media becomes the silent log of an unraveling mind. When someone tries to erase all physical evidence, the one thing they often forget is the emotional data they've already leaked, unintentionally but unmistakably.
People can disappear, but money doesn't. It always leaves a trace if you know where to look.
A gas can, a motel night, a few cash withdrawals. Alone, they're quiet, but together, they tell a story.
No crime scene, no witness, no surveillance, but if anything still leaves a trail, it's money. In every act of preparation, withdrawal, or escape, the flow of money always says something. No one disappears from modern life without spending. And every financial transaction is a choice, a behavior, sometimes even a state of mind. Let's imagine someone quietly preparing to step away from their current life. No confessions, no public signs. But in their financial records, a pattern begins to emerge. They start withdrawing cash, not once, but in multiple small amounts over several days. Each transaction is minor, forgettable, but when charted together, they reveal intent, reducing their digital footprint. Card usage drops. Instead, purchases shift toward survival-oriented items. Portable gas stoves, flashlights, sleeping bags, backup batteries, baby formula, prepaid SIM cards. Each item alone means little. But together, they suggest a scenario: transience, caution, preparation. The locations of these transactions may change too. Someone whose banking activity was previously confined to the city now appears in records from a remote gas station or a roadside motel in a low-signal town. These touchpoints, without any clear reason, become coordinates worth noting. In some cases, the person doesn't just spend differently, they begin dismantling the old system, canceling subscriptions, cutting off home internet, closing long-held bank accounts, creating new digital wallets under non-traceable aliases, or using payment apps that don't require verified identity. These aren't crimes, but they are markers of someone deliberately pulling themselves out of the visible grid. Traditional investigations focus on physical space. Modern ones follow the money. Because money can't keep secrets, it leaves trails in receipts, banking logs, GPS tags, and timestamps. And if read correctly, it can map out an entire direction of movement, thought, and intent. When everything else goes silent, it may be a gas receipt, a carton of milk, or a single night's motel booking at the edge of nowhere. That speaks loudest of all.
People who want to disappear rarely vanish completely. They slip into the quiet corners of the internet, where they think they're invisible.
But it's in that anonymous world where their real psychology shows, because they act out of fear, not strategy.
When someone wants to disappear, they don't just step away from the physical world. They also slip out through quieter exits, into the corners of the internet, where real names are swapped for aliases. Photos are replaced with stock images and digital profiles carry no memory. Modern investigators understand, when the real trail goes cold, it's often the digital duplicate, created to obscure identity, that begins to glow. And it's within the world where people assume anonymity that their defenses tend to crack. Someone might delete their main Facebook, but they still need an account to book temporary lodging, check school requirements, or simply monitor whether someone is looking for them. These secondary accounts usually use fresh emails, false names, profile pictures pulled from generic sources, and logins from unfamiliar locations. They aren't built for socializing, they're built for silent observation. At a forensic level, these accounts can be tracked by creation timestamps, login habits, shared IP addresses, or browser signatures linked to previously known devices. Let's imagine someone in hiding. They may join a parenting forum in a new region and ask how to register a child without formal ID, or they might scan groups about off-grid living to learn how to function without legal documentation. Questions like, can my child attend school without ID? Or, is there a shelter nearby that doesn't ask for papers? While not confessions, reveal a mindset operating outside the system. The investigator doesn't need to know who asked. They only need to trace how that person used the internet as a tool of disappearance. Data doesn't lie. Browser types, time zones, devices used, Wi-Fi networks connected to, they all leave fingerprints. And from these unnoticed backup profiles, it becomes possible to trace the real direction of someone who tried to vanish without leaving a physical trail. The online world may seem like a refuge, but in modern investigation, it becomes a mirror, where the person in hiding often sees themselves most clearly.
When the reward is high enough and the security is strong enough, an anonymous tip can become the key that saves an entire case.
Not everyone stays silent out of apathy. Some have seen, heard, or even known something, but they say nothing. Not because they fear the suspect, but because they fear being dragged into the case. They fear suspicion, subpoenas, losing their job, or simply the unknown consequences that might follow. That's why reward posters, without absolute anonymity guarantees, are often just paper on a wall. But today, we can create completely anonymous reporting channels. No IP logs, no browser fingerprints, no digital trail. Anyone, from a hotel receptionist, a rideshare driver, to a neighbor with a gut feeling, can speak up without fear of being traced. Imagine a web portal with a random link that only lives for a few hours, requiring no login, just a message box and a send button. Imagine a reward, tens of thousands of dollars, not as a vague promise, but as a transparent legal agreement signed by an independent lawyer, guaranteeing payout with no identity exposure. This isn't a gimmick. It's applied psychology. In cases like this, where all leads seem dry, A single sentence from a hidden voice may be the final key that unlocks a door shut for months. No one can truly disappear from this world. And yet, there are cases that make us feel as if they have. Lilly and Jack Sullivan, two innocent children, vanished quietly from our sight, leaving no trace, no cry for help, no farewell. For months, countless roads have been searched, forests turned upside down, surveillance tapes rewound and replayed, only to yield a silence more terrifying than any scream. We don't blame anyone. We don't dismiss the old methods. We don't question the efforts of those who came before. But the one thing we can still do is to not give up and to try the ways no one has ever tried. The world hasn't stood still. Technology is no longer a luxury. A forgotten social media post might speak louder than pages of testimony. A phone powered off at just the right moment could unlock an entirely new map. A minor financial transaction might lead us to a sealed-off room on the edge of town. And sometimes, all it takes is one voice, someone who saw, heard, or suspected but kept it to themselves, for every other missing piece to fall into place. We're not just looking for someone who might have done this. We are looking for two children, with every ounce of life that might still exist. Not to accuse, not to punish, but to reaffirm that every life is worth remembering and worth searching for to the end. Even if there's only 1% chance left, that 1% is reason enough to keep going. Because sometimes, doing what's right isn't about winning. It's about refusing to let go. Because no one was born to vanish. No one leaves without leaving something behind. And if Lilly and Jack are still alive, maybe somewhere, in an unseen clip, a missed status update, a frame of satellite footage we skimmed too fast, their final whisper still lingers. We're here. Don't stop looking. And so, this investigation won't end with a yes or no. It will only end when there is nothing left to try. And today, clearly, is not that day.